Good, super early morning, you guys. I woke up so early this morning and I have been on full go mode for the past couple of hours. But as I was packing and kind of handling my business, this came to my mind and I just wanted to really quick talk about it while it was on my mind. And that was women, us women using our powers for good. Hi, Christine. Hi, Evie. Hi, Just Being Jazzy. Hello, Luna. And let me keep it real with you guys. This may be an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of men to have, but I think if we're honest, both us women and men, then you know what I'm saying is true. From birth, from birth, the majority of society is conditioned to Luna, did I get your message on Patreon? Um, I probably did. I haven't read it yet though. Um, so from birth, the majority of society is conditioned to listen to women, whether you guys recognize it or not. Our first contact, the person that we trust the most, the person who's capable of violating us the easiest, are our mothers. And so both men and women kind of grow up in our childhood when we're young. Our mothers are akin to God in our eyes. Right? This does not last long if you're not a great mother, but ultimately the baby comes out of your body, you nurse that baby, you feed that baby, you care for that baby, that child turns into a toddler. And in these early years of life, mom is everything. Mom is literally everything. If you're a mother, you know, how many times do your kids literally yell, Mom, because they expect you to solve everything, have the answers to everything. If they get hurt, they come to you for comfort. So most human beings are hardwired to love women. And that wiring can go off a bit, you know, if you have a bad experience with your mother, if you're not surrounded by women who care for you and love for you, this goes for men and women, then you can start to have like a negative feeling toward women. But initially, women, we really have like the upper hand as far as humanity is concerned because everybody's born with that attachment. Everybody's born with that attachment. Kiara, I am doing well. My morning is really productive so far. Hello, Josh. Hi, JDR podcast. So the majority of society is geared toward automatically, just by the way of nature, loving, trusting, and depending on women. And when women become adults, to some extent, we know this because I listen to women and I watch women sort of uh, wielding this power all the time. Women do it for really stupid purposes, though. Like, we tap into our womanhood and our ability to influence others, especially men, when it comes to getting money or a purse or making somebody feel bad in a relationship or, you know, like we know how to tap into it. When we want to hurt somebody, oh, we tap all the way into the fact that we can influence them. Like, don't tick a woman off. She's tapping in. Okay. She knows how to hurt you because she knows that is capable of that. So it's interesting that we tap into all these things, but we never use our powers for good as a collective. The same influence that we have when we totally glam ourselves up and we know that when we walk in the room, everybody's eye, all the men are going to be looking at you. The same way we know how to author our words to get the response we want out of men, it's harder for us to manipulate each other. This is why I'm focusing on men because women, we aren't as good at manipulating each other as we are at manipulating men. And I say manipulation, and I know that the word manipulation has a negative connotation in a lot of people's minds, but it's not necessarily negative, right? There are many things where we manipulate an environment. We manipulate the environment to create dams and bridges and roads. Manipulation in and of itself is not negative. It's what you do with that manipulation that is problematic. So at the end of the day, women know that people are responsive to them and people are hardwired to respond to what women want and how women behave. And yet we don't use our powers for good. We don't. We use our powers for this is why women don't run the world. If you really want to know why women don't run the world, other than the power dynamic and that men can physically control us, the other thing is that women, we're not the brightest. We're not. Because we use our feminine influence for things that are stupid, right? We'll work really hard to get a purse. We'll work really hard to get somebody to propose to us. We'll work really hard to like one up the next chick with her own man. We'll work really hard for a lot of things as women. But what we don't do is we don't work hard to have impactful influence that matters, not as a collective. Not as a collective, we don't. So what I recognize and what I would really love to see women do is your womanhood, whether you're a mother or not, automatically affords you a level of power. It automatically affords you a level of power because everybody's starting point is their mother. Everybody's starting point is their mother. And barring any violation of children, those children grow up and for the whole beginning of their lives, like I said, their mother is everything. I'm hurt, mother will make it better, right? I need comfort, mother will comfort me. I'm sick, mother will help me. I need an answer, mother will answer it. I'm hungry, mother will feed me. Everybody starts their life. I mean, there might be some exceptions, but the exceptions prove the rule. Pretty much everybody starts their life that way. And those hard wirings don't end when people become adults, which is why and my patrons and members, y'all are going to get a taste of my conversation on this, which is why women's bodies are often used and women's words, right, are often used to sell things. That's why you see in commercials, women are the people that are doing, they hire to do the majority of commercials because everybody is hardwired to respond to womankind. Now, what's interesting to me is innately, when we want to get our way, we automatically tap into our ability to influence the opposite sex. That's an innate response. You don't even miss a beat. Like when you're in an argument with somebody, when you want something out of somebody, when you're putting yourself together, it's like an automatic thing. It's like a switch turns on and you're on autopilot, right? But I find that women don't know how to recognize that strength and use it for things that are actually productive. I honestly, when I see women operating deep in their feminine, it's on some stupid stuff, like 9 times out of 10. I'm just going to keep it real. It's on really dumb stuff. And what I recognize is, and I was thinking this about YouTubers in general, y'all, and I'm not calling any one YouTuber out. I've noticed this on many YouTube platforms, okay? If a woman steps into the room amongst men, or if a woman has a channel that men are responsive to, what I don't see happening is those women using their powers for good. Like these men are here listening to you talk, right? They're open. The women who are hearing you are open. We're all open to the voice of womankind because we all have that initial starting point in trusting women. Everybody is designed to automatically trust women. That's why you have pedophiles. They will often recruit women to help them violate children because children automatically trust women. Many of us will say, don't talk to strangers who are men, but if a woman were to approach a child or were to approach us, we trust them, right? This is why pimps have bottom bitches, right? They have these women because women are able to tap into things that that man can't tap into. That's why they lean so heavily on that bottom prostitute, right? They lean heavily on their bottom because what she's doing helps keep the other women in line. In fact, he can't be effective without her. Manhood is not effective without womanhood. All the messages in the manosphere would mean nothing if there were not women who would co-sign it. All of the conversation, let's say that Pink Pill has, would mean nothing if other women didn't co-sign it. You need women to show up to the table to make a message powerful, right? Even some of our young women, we have some young, like liberal women out here who are very pro homosexual, very, very leftist in their views, very pro feminism. Feminism would go nowhere, right? Without a woman to co sign it. So, this is all that I'm saying is that you need the cosign of womankind. You need the cosign of womankind. And women on some level know this, but we never use our powers for good. The level of positive change that could be exacted if when you have the ear of a group of people, or you have the ear of the men in your life, or you have the ear of the women in your life, the amount of positive change that could be exacted if women move with purpose, but we don't move with purpose. A lot of us are, are have no purpose. We have no purpose. Our purposes are self-serving. Even when we recognize that we have power as women, we revel in the idea that we have power, but our power, we want to exact it to get somebody else's man. Our power, we want to exact it to have all eyes on us in a room. Our power, we want to exact it for monetary gain, but not communal gain. Our power, we want to exact it to punish, right? I want to see you punished. Women know this. How many women have cried because you know that crying shuts down an entire situation? You know that just the fact that you make tears and appear hurt can completely change the balance in any dynamic. And I'm not saying that you're crying and you don't really want to cry. I'm just saying that, do you know that when you cry, it can change the balance? And maybe not for everybody, but 8 times out of 10, it's going to change the balance. When you withhold yourself, it changes the balance. But we have no purpose as women. We don't move with purpose. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. It's not a weakness in anybody. But do you know what's problematic? I feel really strongly about this. Women, as the individuals that carry, we have wombs. We have wombs and vaginas, which is not to demean men, so different from them. Every human being is intrinsically connected to womanhood because the beginning of their life, the beginning of their existence occurs in our bodies, right? A vagina, if you really think about it, has significance to humanity because every human being, barring, a cesarean, right, passes through a vagina. They come through the matrix. Every human on this earth, regardless of gender, is attached to womanhood. There's no getting around that. Attached to womanhood in a way that's completely different from our interactions with maleness. And yet, although corporations know how to make money off of women, although women know how to manipulate their physicality and conversation to benefit themselves, Although we on some level recognize that people respond to women, the collective of women does not move with any purpose. Let's bring this on in from womankind in general to Black women. When we look at the community, okay, because I'm ready for the crucifixion. You guys can just go ahead and string me up by my bowels right now. Just be prepared to do it. Just be prepared to gut me and hang me up by my own intestine. It's going to be like the Vietnam War, right? In the Black community, everybody knows that I definitely believe that ultimate responsibility falls to the men because the men are, in my traditional view, they are designated leaders. So at the end of the day, the person with the ultimate power is the person with the ultimate culpability. However, women are the foundation for everything. Men are the head, women are the foundation. A building has a foundation, and women are the foundation for everything. So when women do not move with purpose, the foundation is poor and the building will crumble. Now, does this take responsibility away from men? No, but it does speak to how when the foundation is a crumbling fixture that has no purpose, when the foundation has a conscience, and as women, we're the foundation, we have a conscience, but we're not conscious of the fact that our behaviors, our attitudes, our maneuverings are foundationally where everybody sprouts from. It's amazing to me that we're on YouTube having a conversation about the divine feminine and how great women are and, the Black woman is God and all this. You can't say in one breath, and the Black woman is not God. The Black woman is not God. Okay? But the Black woman is the blueprint for humanity. You're not God, though. But even if I wanted to give Black women that the Black woman is God, then why does God not want any responsibility for what the hell's going on? Like, make it all make sense. On one hand, women want the ultimate amount of praise. Women want the ultimate amount of worship. Women want the ultimate amount of protection, but they want no responsibility in anything that's going on. That is freaking crazy to me. The men are culpable for completely and totally dropping the collective ball on leadership. But the foundation of every human being walking on the planet starts with your womb. It begins with your womb. You have the ability to manipulate, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. Womankind has the ability to manipulate every human being on the planet from birth. You can instill any moral, any ideology, any belief in any child because who has greater access to children than we do? I want you guys to tell me who has greater access to children than woman? Every human being on this planet is completely beholden to our every belief and mindset for the first 5 to 10 years of their life. From the womb, we can form any type of human being that we want. If that is not power, if that is not foundational, I don't know what is. So for people who have wombs, for people who have that much control over humanity, to move without purpose, to only use their strength in the most asinine, retarded, ridiculous way possible, which is why I always side eye people who look down on motherhood or homemaking. It's like, do you recognize motherhood and homemaking are the foundation of society? Do you recognize that womanhood, that motherhood, that teaching children, all of those foundational things are dominated by women? The nuts and bolts, the blueprint for what we see is woman's work. Now, this is not saying a woman without male leadership will be off point, which is exactly why I say ultimate culpability goes to the men. But I just want to talk to you women, as a woman, as a person who also has a womb, as a person who is a mother. The foundational work, the power over every human being that breathes that women have. When we look at society, for a woman out of all people to say this has nothing to do with her makes no sense. If it doesn't have anything to do with you, the person who literally has the greatest access to every human being that has ever existed, who does it have something to do with? If it doesn't have anything to do with us, who does it have something to do with? Y'all help me understand. If we're not the ones pulling the puppet strings around here, who is? Who has more access than you, woman? It's a whole lot of power that a whole lot of stupid people. You have women around here who are stupid, but with a whole womb and vagina. You have women walking around not worth the womb that they are carrying. It is crazy. Y'all, on my Patreon, I cannot talk about this publicly. There was a woman who took her child and shoved her baby in the trunk of a car. And another woman had to be like, you cannot shove your child in the car. Take your son, her son, out of the car. You have women around here whose job is to cultivate children. I talked about this in my single mothers and the protection of children. But instead of recognizing that your job is so much greater than anybody else's, as you cultivate a young mind, that you are laying the foundation for our community, our entire society, our planet, which is a huge responsibility. You're worried about if you get to bring a man home tonight. You're worried about, not to diminish looks, how good you look in something. You're irritated with your kids because they walked in a room to ask you a question while you were on the phone. It's like, what is the more important thing? I don't think women collectively realize how important our maneuverings are to society, to how the world functions, to how the Black community functions. Women are such an important piece of this puzzle. We are the foundation layers. We lay the foundation. I don't understand women who look up at their kids or look up at their sons and are questioning why. It's like you have the ability to make, like, to think, for us to think that that foundational work does not impact how people come out would be foolish. It would be foolish and it would diminish everything that womanhood is. You guys know that I'm very pro woman, but in my pro womanness, I recognize that with such power comes great responsibility. And again, this is not to absolve men, because ultimately, at the end of the day, they are culpable above everyone because they are men. So I'm not absolving the men. Because, a lot of women will be like, what about the man? What about the men? The men aren't doing this. Look, I'm not absolving them. Ultimately, when the ball drops, it's going to fall on their head because they take ultimate culpability. But my focus today is not them. My focus is the people who literally have their hands on every generation of human being. The people who literally can condition and develop the minds, the foundational work in every human being. My focus is on you. We have to have the conversation. We have to have the conversation about that. There is liability on the female side. To absolve ourselves of liability is to deny the power that is womanhood. If you truly believe that women are powerful, then you know where that power lies. It lies in the fact that there is not a human being that can escape our influence early on. Where all of the foundation of their personalities are laid, there's barely a human on this planet that has escaped the influence of a woman. From the time they leave the vagina, from the time they break the matrix, until they gain their independence, who influences them most but you? Who is teaching them? Who is birthing them? Who is raising them? Who is feeding them and caring for them when they are ill? If you can't manage to cultivate respect for womankind, if you can't manage to cultivate the foundation of how you view interactions in the world, the foundation of their personality and morality, when you have complete control, the power of woman is so great. We toss around the terms about our power carelessly, desiring a respect that we have not cultivated. You would not have to call for this respect if you cultivated that. You would not have to call for your value or call for your protection or call for your leadership if that was cultivated initially. In my home, the boys are taught early about protection of women. I tell you guys this story that always breaks my heart about my mother when she was dying, how she got up out the bed because she was frustrated we couldn't find something for her for a project she wanted to do with the kids, and she collapsed onto the floor because she didn't realize how weak she was. The first person to move to help her was my 2-year-old son. He was the first person to run over to her and attempt to pick her up with his little tiny 2-year-old body. Because in him, protection has been cultivated from a young age. He's the first person to stand up for somebody, even though he's the smallest person in the house. Because this idea of value and protection has been cultivated in him. He loves Black people. He's the first person to talk about Black people because love for his community has been cultivated in him. I did not neglect my job as a mother to my children. And then when they become adults, I'm looking at adults that have no loyalty, no love, no respect, no inclination toward protection. And then think to myself, well, dang, what's wrong with them? They're horrible people. They are a result of their foundation. Now, I'm not saying women can teach a man how to be a man. Don't take my words and run off into space with them. Right? That's not true. But foundation work is done by women. Fathers are not the ones who are normally spending 16 hours a day with children. That's not fathers. Fathers finish the work that we start. That's what they do if we're keeping it real. Mothers lay the foundation. Children watch our interaction with men. Children watch and pay attention to our interaction with them. They listen to what we say, but they watch what we do. And then after women lay a foundation, then the men, especially among the boys, provide the finishing work. Men are the finishing school of society. Women lay the foundation. We write the blueprint. We write the blueprint. And there is responsibility in that. You can't preach, and I don't even believe in the divine feminine. I don't. But you can't preach divine feminine and the Black woman is God and all this crap on one side, but refuse to accept culpability on the other side. If you want to be God in your own eyes, then you are then responsible. So rather than us tacking all these labels on ourselves to make ourselves feel great about ourselves, how about we just be great? I don't have to call myself God. I don't have to call in the divine feminine if I just move with purpose. I know that I have a womb. I know that life grows and starts in me. I know that I cultivate the foundation of mankind. I don't have to call myself God. I don't have to do that. I don't have to talk, I don't have to wax lyrical about the divine feminine. It's still move without purpose. I don't have to fight a battle about respect when I have my hands on the brains of every human being that's living from birth. Respect should not be a conversation. Why didn't you lay that foundation? Now, I'm curious if there's going to be any dissent or disagreement with this. That's what I'm curious about. Now, I've been live for 30 minutes, y'all. I have a lot to do today. So let's give it 30 minutes to an hour more. I'm not staying up here more than an hour and 30 minutes. And if you agree or disagree, then you can let me know. You can come up, you can say your piece. But I want to say this is not me coming for womankind. I'm just saying with love. A lot of women use their powers for the wrong thing. When you see yourself operating in your power, the first thing you should be asking yourself is, what good can I do here? Because a lot of times when we move selfishly as women, the impact is much more great. One woman has the ability to control the minds of many. And too often I see this power used in the most ridiculous of ways. How do you know? What are your thoughts on this?
Damn it, Irene. Irene, is there any way I can talk to you not on the stream or no, because you're doing the whole packing thing. No, I don't mind
Yeah,
talking on the stream,
we'll have an
but
opportunity to talk.
okay, yeah, because I have very, like, a lot of specific questions for you. I wanted to actually, that was actually what I was asking you on Patreon. I wanted a woman stream where we just talk and stuff like that with no men, because you guys suck. Because every time you come up, you mess up the conversation, and sometimes it be going so good. But, well, I was disagreeing what you said because maybe I didn't fully understand it, but you
Wait,
were
can
saying that,
before I want to say this. Enough's Given said, OMG, Irene, your mods are the main one disagreeing with you. My mods are not required to agree with me. Everybody knows that.
boom.
My mods are not required to agree with me. Being a mod on my channel does not mean that you agree. That is not, my mods don't have a rule that they have to agree with what I say or they're going to lose their wrench. They know that. They can say whatever they want. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I think maybe I'm confused. So what I got from what you were saying was that, women have the ability to be able to coax men, or not even just men, but coax people into doing, our bidding basically, but we use it for, dumb things a lot of times. We use it to look good, we use it to pull somebody else's man, or we use it to, go against another baby mama or something like that. But I disagree because, well, I guess it would I guess it would depend on what what that's pertaining to. Because if we're talking about men in general, then I agree. I think we could be using our feminine energy to be doing much more than that, especially Black women, because we are, the blueprint. We're in charge of so much more than what we know. Like, most Black women don't even know their worth. So a lot of times they get on streams and ask, well, how do I find a good man? How do I find a good man? And it's like, sis, fuck a man. How do you feel about yourself? You know what I mean? But if
Or
we're
how
if we're
about
talking,
this? How about we stop searching for good men and we cultivate the foundation work of good manhood, right? We have
I
the
don't think
ability
that
to do that. We have the ability to open our legs or close our legs to who we want. We have the ability to mold the minds of our sons. We have that impact as women. We don't have to find the thing that we can create. I mean,
I
that's what
don't think
women
that
need
can
to
happen
realize.
for
We
Black
can
men.
create. we lay that foundation work. Who has their hands on little boys more than we do?
We do, but I
Who?
don't think
Who
it happens for
touches
black
them more
men.
than we?
I don't believe that can happen for black men. I
I mean,
believe,
who's raising them? We acknowledge openly their fathers are not overwhelmingly
oh
raising them.
yeah, no,
So how
they're
do
in
we
the
not have our
mother's
hands on their
household.
minds? Is my question.
Because I don't know, I just feel like for two they I feel like it goes beyond just our nurturing. I feel like this is their inner, I don't feel like energy is like lost or destroyed. Like I know you're a Christian, but I feel like people are just basically being reincarnated, and that's why we see such treasonous behaviors from them. Because I know plenty of mothers who raise their sons to be good upstanding men who protect women. Well, some of them anyway. Most of them I don't, but still they still go out and they like marry out, or they have these weird things about black women, and most of the time they don't even know why. You know what I mean? I just feel like it's a cycle of energy, and it's just like, well,
You
I
think
don't
that
feel
something is
envious.
innately wrong with them?
I think there's something innately wrong with them. I think they're
Here's the problem with that.
evil.
You, as a woman, if we think something is innately wrong with the people that we create, I think that is problematic. And I think it also, as a woman, it's a dangerous stance for us to take because all life comes through us. Can you imagine birthing a child, right? Can you imagine carrying a human being in your body for 10 months, then birthing that baby, and then looking at that baby that is male and thinking to yourself, you are innately broken? Do you not think that that mindset, if a mother has that mindset, that in her interactions with her child, she's going to cultivate that thing that she believes?
I don't think most black women have that innately in them for that black boy. I don't think black women have that, because black women damn near worship black boys. That was actually ultimately why I decided to not want to procreate with a black man and not have black children. I wanted anything else. I don't even give a shit. I would prefer white, but anything else, because I knew with everything that's going on with black men and the way I felt about them, there's no way I'd be able to look at a black boy and be comfortable with it, because I would just see all these other men who are online and all these other men who are out here in the world just wreaking havoc on everything.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, I do know you've shared that thought with me before, Luna. Laura Benjamin, what are your thoughts?
1 second. I am a mother of two grown black men, almost 29 and 27. Soon, I unfortunately had to raise them primarily without the assistance of their father, because when our relationship ended, he felt um, that he could not do the co-parenting thing with me. So our situation was where he would just pay the child support, as it were, and I was left to do the disciplining and the training and everything else. Um, the other dynamic that I had is that I am biracial. Um, Coming from Trinidad, my mother is what you would consider South Asian or East Indian, and my father is black. And if you know anything about East Asians, if you think that you all have a black male worshiping culture in America, East Asians worship, East Asian women worship their sons and their grandsons, and they treat them like gods. So, my first son, my mother had a very unhealthy, in my opinion, dynamic with him. And there was a lot of stuff going on. So, um, for me, I felt like if I lost my boys, because of that, because there was so much of an imbalance. Their father wasn't there. Um, Instead of my mother giving me support, it felt like she was competing. So today, this conversation that Irene has opened, just like the one from about a week ago, it really broke me wide open for a second time. um, because it's hard for me every day to live feeling like I failed my sons, feeling like I'm the reason that they don't want to try to have a relationship. And in my mind, I did the best that I could under the circumstances. So I feel um, I feel this conversation that Irene has broached this morning from a very, very deep place, a very personal place, and I appreciate it. So Irene, I hear what you're saying. It touches me specifically because I agree with most of what you're saying. I really do. I don't know where I could have done it differently because in my situation, for so much of the time, I felt overwhelmed. Um, so, but I think that you're right that we do have the power to shape the minds and the hearts of our children, not just the boys, the girls as well. But we have to have these conversations. Yeah. So I just want to say that I agree with you.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up that perspective as well, because I think, and this is where men really come into play, and that's why I say they have ultimate culpability in this, right? So I have this conversation in honesty, but not to absolve men. Because women, you said I felt overwhelmed much of the time. And the reality is, when a woman is left to do that foundational work, which is so much energy, right? It's so much
Yeah.
energy and it takes so much out of you as a woman to properly raise a child and lay that foundation for who they're going to be when they get older. When a
True.
woman has to take on that work and then also has to do the job that the man, if he were present and active, would do, then that is where women cannot operate at their optimal. And in that feeling of being overwhelmed, we can't bring our best selves to the table, especially when it's an overwhelming situation that is being perpetuated year after year after year. And then that is where men can have responsibility. When we talk about women laying that foundation work, a lot of the men are going to be like, absolutely, it's y'all's fault. You're laying the foundation. She's right. But if I'm saying that, I'm also saying that then you have the ultimate culpability if a woman is left alone to do that important work and does not have the support of what men are supposed to be bringing, which is that
Yeah.
you take over other responsibilities so that she can be at her best to do the job that is so important, which is lay that foundation for a human being that is functional and right minded, then that does become extremely problematic. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I do think when we see horrible imbalances like that, it's because of the lack of male provision and energy in the space, right? Women, now with this said, ladies, if you are abandoned, right? We have to recognize our ultimate job and we still have to try to bring our best to the table. It should not be that way, but we can't cry over spilled milk. Once the abandonment has happened, once you're alone, you still have to recognize that your biggest job is that foundational work. But with
Yeah.
that said, no woman should ever be in a position, no man should ever accept a woman being in that position where she's trying to do her job as a woman and mother and also a man's job as a man in her household by herself.
Where do
Go
you feel
ahead.
like our mistake as women is coming from? Do you feel like we're trying to do too much? Like we're going out there trying to be all we can be and we're not allowing the men to take their places? Because I'm a little confused.
Well, I think first of all, everybody's different, right? So some men, a woman might be willing to, but he's not a great person. Or sometimes a woman gives herself too readily. So you lay down, have sex with a man, get pregnant, you feel, I don't want to kill my own child, which is fair. And I encourage women to feel that way about their wombs and their babies. But then you've given birth to somebody that you now have an attachment to a man that you did not have any foundation with. And then he leaves, right? And so you're left holding the bag, or you guys don't get along. So you're left holding the bag, or you have a committed relationship with the man and he's just not a good person. Or some women cut the man off. So let's say if I have a problem with you, weaponization of a child against a man is a card that women do pull. Let's keep it real. I've seen it in my own life, and I've had to step to women that I have personal relationships and be like, look, yo, he can see his kid. Like, what are you doing? I don't care what he paid or what went on. That's the child's father. It's not about your feelings. It's about your child having access to their father. So I think different things happen. Sometimes it's the man, sometimes it's the woman, but at the end of the day, different things happen. I don't think that it's a cookie cutter sort of situation. Everybody's story is different how they get there. Some women are widowed. Do you know what I mean? Some fathers die. Some fathers go off to jail. Some fathers abandon. Some fathers are pushed out, right? Either because of their behavior or because the woman is controlling and she hasn't been reared in a way, to be able to work with her partner. So I don't think the weight of it falls on women or men. I think both parties contribute, and I think it looks different in every single scenario based on who's a part of those situations. I don't think there's a one size fits all answer to how women get into these situations. I think it's varied, and a lot of times it could be multiple of those things happening with one woman. The slave room. What are your thoughts?
Hi, Irene. My name is Sharaya. Thank you so much for having me.
Nice to
Um,
meet you, Sharia.
I would say most of the time when I listen to your content, I feel like triggered by the things that you say, and I realize it's because I'm taking it too personally. So when I step out of like you talking about me specifically as a woman and think about it in general, you're right. Women do have the power, and we should be the ones setting the foundation for what our children grow up to be. And it should have been that way in the past. It should be that way today. I think we're not really being honest about how irritated some mothers are in their own homes from having to consume both roles, right?
Mm,
I don't want to bring the men into the conversation because it doesn't seem like we're talking about the men right now. And like, I can't stand when something is supposed to be about them and they start bringing up women, but what about what women do? You're talking about ladies. And yeah, at times my mother was extremely irritated because she had to assume both roles in my upbringing. I love her. I forgive her for that, but it also is what it is. Like, I think if you take your personal life out of the situation and just think about what Irene is saying, she really is speaking facts, even though I'm a little triggered with the whole. I think when you use words like never, women never do this, like it makes me feel triggered, and now I feel like the men. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble on, but I did want to say that I do agree with your talking points, and it's like not thinking about black men specifically because I've also decided like I just don't want to have children with people who are probably ultimately going to abandon me or leave me to be solely responsible for the upbringing of my children. I don't want my children to not, have a healthy family dynamic. But if no one is bearing black children in a healthy family dynamic, we're never going to get the things that we're talking about.
Hun, that's not realistic. There are tons of black people in this world who are still having black babies. I don't believe that just because a lot of women divest, that all of a sudden the black race is no longer going to exist.
That's not what I said. I
No, no,
said
no. I'm
that
not saying you said that, but
healthy,
I'm just saying
I'm
in
talking
general.
about the black boys growing into healthy black men, right? So I'm not talking about the black men that are already black men today and they already have their ideology.
Right.
They already missed their parenting mark where the mother and the father should have been setting that foundation. I'm talking about the black boys that are still growing up in an unhealthy foundation. And Irene is right. Women do have the power to set that foundation, but you can't really do it if you're doing everything on your own. And we're not being honest that doing both roles is hard. No one can do it. And they're angry in their homes.
Well, to me,
That's
it seems like the main reason why that's taking place is because women aren't focused on self. It seems like it's ourselves that we need to focus on and getting ourselves healthy. That way
uh,
we can get a man who is healthy in himself. Because if we're not healthy in the way we need to be mentally and spiritually, then we're not going to attract that, and
yeah,
therefore our children aren't going to be that.
yeah.
I
So I think there's a balance between that. I think once a woman is a mother, a focus on self becomes problematic. I know that, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, Luna. I think you mean doing the work before you find a husband and become a mother. But I'm saying in the moment that you are a mother, I think there's a lot of focus on self that is promoted that women have not been taught that focus on your children is focusing on self because they are an extension of you and they are your legacy, right? I think a lot of women, what's pushed in the modern day, and again, this is not what Luna was saying, but this is what she said made me think of. I think what's pushed in the modern day is you hear people say, well, if you're not happy and you don't take care of yourself, you can't keep your family happy. And I think it's a distortion of facts. Our self focus, and that's why you guys should watch my video, Single Mothers and the Protection of Children. When our focus becomes us and does not become, when you have a child, the child becomes the priority and you are prioritizing yourself by prioritizing your child. You don't separate self focus from focus on your children. Those things become a conglomerated effort. Now, while I agree with the slave, or I'm sorry, what is your name? Is not the slave room. What was your name again?
it's Sharia, but you can say the
Sharia. Thank
playroom.
you. Y'all know that I'm old and forgetful, so I might ask you again. But when Sharia made her point, I agree with it that it is a burden, and a lot of women have anger in their own homes, and this can even affect when the father does come around, how they interact with the father. Because am so stressed, I'm so overwhelmed, and that constant year after year, month after month, year after year stress affects our mentality as women, and that is very true. But I want to say this, ladies, when you are in a situation that's a no-win situation, we still have to try to bring our best to the table. We have to. Our children deserve that. And we have to do that for ourselves. And ultimately, when we step back and we look at our community, although we should never be in that position, although it's a very hard position to be in, although it's not right, we still have to do right within it. And then we have to raise children that will not perpetuate situations, the situation that we have had to rear them in. That should be our main focus, is instilling in our children a mindset that will not perpetuate the same situation that we had to struggle through. The work may not be able, and that relief may not come for you in your lifetime, but it should be your utmost goal to make sure that your children come out, male and female, with a mindset that will not perpetuate that further. So it's interesting to me, and that's why, just to get off topic, when I talk about promiscuity, when women are really pro promiscuity, it's like promiscuity is how you end up as a single mother, right? Having sex with men that don't make good partners is how you end up having to get abortions, how you end up having to, have children that are with somebody that you really don't want to have a kid with. So then why then would older women and mothers promote something that they know can end up to be highly detrimental to them, right? To their young ones. Does this mean that if you get married, you can't end up a single mother? No, but most single mothers were not married, right? In the Black community. Most single mothers were not married to the man that made them a single mother. So that would follow that interaction with men outside of marriage, outside of that commitment, right, is not beneficial to us. But then what message do we pass on to our young ladies? That's not the message that we're giving them. We're giving them the sexual liberation message. We're giving them all these other messages that we know are flawed. So then that's why I'm saying, while um while I acknowledge no woman should have to do that, while I acknowledge we need to work on ourselves before we attempt to create families as women, while I acknowledge that it's very difficult for a woman to bring the right energy to the table when she is overwhelmed for extended periods of time, sometimes the entire lifetime of their children, just constantly stressed with the burden of pulling two jobs, it's all the more the reason that we have to bring our A game to the table with consistency and be a support for each other as women in that. Because if we are not, we will raise and rear children who have the mindsets that create the very situation that caused us so much distress and pain throughout our lifetimes. It just makes us have to double down on those efforts. And I know the ladies are not looking to hear from a man today. I know that. But let's just hear City of Truth out. City of Truth, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and thank you, Irene, and thank you, ladies. For allowing me on the panel. But I just wanted to say this: when it comes to this topic, this hits near and dear to my heart because I can attest and give testimony to how it affected me and my family when I was growing up. I was born in South Central Los Angeles in the early 1990s, and from basically from like 1991 up until 1995, we had a two-parent household. We had a nice two-story house in South Central Los Angeles. It was me, my half sister, my mother, and my father. But then, at some point in about 95, my mother decided that my dad wasn't a bad guy or anything, but she made up this thing in her head that, oh, he's not paying the bills, or I have to ask him for the money to pay the bills every month. And really what it was is she was just starting arguments and stuff with him because she was discontent because he wasn't, I guess, moving fast enough to go along with her plan. So she basically waited till he went to work one day, and she packed me and my half sister up and moved us way out into the high desert. And that's basically where I ended up growing up. And she ended up putting my father on child support. I still had a good relationship with my dad, though. I still saw him every weekend and that kind of thing. But it created this tension in the household. The child support created this tension to where, once he was able to get the child support reduced and stuff, she would sit there and she would tell stories about how he went behind my back and got the child support reduced. And I'm like, but it was, everything he did was legal. It was within the law. It wasn't like he was doing some nefarious thing. He's just making sure that the whole process is right and fair in regards to him. You know what I mean? But she made this whole narrative about, oh, he's not paying this, he's not doing this. And it created so much toxicity and stuff in the house. And
I'm
it
so
left.
Well,
sorry.
wait,
This
I
is the
know, I know, I
problem.
know I know you ladies are about to go in, but I just want to say this. Number one, my in my experience, and it doesn't sound like your mother was this kind of woman, but in my experience, when a family breaks up, the burden of the breakup of the family is held on the person who obviously left, and that's oftentimes the woman because she has to pick up and move. You don't know what went on between the two of them that she may have never shared with you that caused her to make that move. So I
Oh,
would
no,
not
no,
judge.
no.
No, no,
Let me.
wait, just let me finish. I would not judge her too harshly because you don't know the extent of what she chose to share with you or what all went into that because you weren't in that relationship. You're a child like looking at it. But I do disapprove. Number one, I'll say this: child support is not about fairness to parents, right? Child support is about fairness to children. Child support is not about the parents. And I think so many people make custody and child support about them, right? My money, what I want, the money I'm putting out on both sides. The fathers and the mothers tend to make custody and child support about them and not about their children at the end of the day, which is very unfortunate. When people start talking about me and my in conversations about child support and custody, to me, those are parents that are not prioritizing their children. They're way more concerned about themselves. They're way more concerned about their comfort and what makes them happy and what makes them feel that they're not getting shafted than they are about the care of their children. All conversations that we have surrounding child support and custody should be based on what is best for the child and not how you can dip and dive and capitalize or not allow somebody to capitalize on a situation. I just
And
want
All
to
right.
throw that out there.
can I say,
I'm
hold
Uh-huh.
not
on,
saying
City of
that's
Truth.
what I'm not saying that's what you're speaking of. I just when you're talking, I
Yeah.
hear that.
All right,
I also
Irene.
think
Hold on,
I
City
think
of
City of
Truth.
Truth brings up a really good point as well. And the fact that his mother was sharing, right, her frustrations with him is one of the reasons I tell you, ladies, do not include your children on adult matters. Make that a hard stop, no matter what the other parent does. No matter what the other parent does, no matter how you feel about it, no matter how much you're struggling, because sometimes we don't respect how hard it is to be the person that has the children in your home. That's so much more work than paying out a check, whether you're the father who's keeping a child or the mother who most times is keeping the child. So, no matter how stressed you get, do not burden your children with conversations about your beef with the other parent. They cannot process it, right? They will not see it the way you do. And it's not their burden to carry. If the other parent is an ass, then that's something that you will have to have internally and know about yourself and never mention to your kids. I feel really strongly about this. And I think just what City of Truth said exemplifies why we ought not do this as women. Because however you mean it is not how your child is going to process it. And it's not something that they should have to process because it's not their problem. They did not ask to be here. What were you going to say, Luna?
Yeah, so the only thing, because I was gonna let him talk and say whatever he needed to say, but the only thing that I was saying, the reason why I wanted a panel with women specifically is because, you know, I'm not saying all the men are like this. You know, there's a lot of men who can come up and have a really good conversation, but it's
Mm.
just that when you are holding women accountable and you're telling us the things that we do wrong and the things that we need to do better, the conversation gets messed up a lot of times because the men will come on, and even though they are letting us know their truth and their experiences, it gets skewed in the conversation because, you know, they're talking about something that, you know, a lot of times the manosphere weaponizes against women. And so therefore, when we're trying to have conversations, you know, just about us and what we need to do better, and then they come up here, it completely messes up the dynamic sometimes, because then they start going into stuff that maybe it is true, maybe they're not like that, but we've heard that so many times. And so therefore it messes up our healing and our ability to be able to look at our wrongs and see what we can do
Mm,
better. Because for a woman like me, and with my views that can be, you know, viewed as very dramatic, you know, I'm really actually on here to meet other women and really wanting to learn other people's experiences and other women, and how they view certain things. And then a man comes on and he starts telling his thing, and it just messes up the dynamic to where I now can't even learn how to be better, because now it's only focused on the bull crap he's saying. And I'm not saying that that man, you know, he said anything wrong, but I'm just saying, like, in general, most of the panels that we've had where a man has came up, somehow,
well,
some way, it's caused, you know, the conversation to completely be diverted
well,
to
I
what
do.
the
I will.
original
I
intent
will
was.
say you won't say it, but I will. City of Truth, you know you're always welcome here. Apache, who is a guy, for those of you who don't know, Apache War is a guy. He's a man. He says, please get men off the panel. A City of Truth, I am going to drop you, not because you said anything wrong per se, but because I do recognize when you came up here and you kind of shared your story, I do agree with Luna in the sense that when we attempt to hold each other accountable and talk about where we can improve as women, I think in this conversation, something she wasn't willing to say, but I will go ahead and say, is that for you to come up in that conversation and say, yeah, you know, my mom was one of those moms that took us out the home and kind of drug my father for child support. I think
Yeah.
that does that will put a
Let
lot of
me
women off.
let me at
And
least
so and
respond
so
though.
and
Let me
so
say
wait,
this before I
wait,
leave.
yeah, I'm gonna let you respond to your truth, but 1 second. I do think it does become counterproductive to the conversation because women who have a hard time like assimilating that, we had women who have a hard time like taking that in, that they're going to close completely off because of that energy. So I'm going to drop you just
Let me
because I
just say
think it's
this
not
real
going to
quick.
add, I don't think it's going to add to the conversation in like a positive way, but not because you're cool to come up here. But go
Okay.
ahead and say what you're going to say before
Well, let
you
me just say this
go.
last thing. It's whenever you get guys that have panels and stuff, they'll let women and stuff come on the panel
Oh,
and
good
give
grief.
experience, and it doesn't take away from what those guys are saying. When you
Yeah,
have
it
people
does.
like
Stop
Una,
comparing us to
oh,
men. Stop
let me
it.
finish
No,
my
stop it.
statement, bro.
Stop it. Stop comparing us
Wait,
to men.
let me
Stop
finish
comparing
my
us to what
statement,
men do.
Aisha. You what you're saying, you want to improve and learn and grow as women. You're not going to do that in an echo chamber. You're not going to do that in a
This is
chamber.
It's
not an
not
this
it's
is
not an
not an
echo
echo
it's
chamber.
not an
This is
echo
not an echo
chamber.
chamber. Don't
It's
do
not
that.
an echo
Do
chamber if
you?
we're talking
How
about
are
what
you
needs to
ever?
be improved
The
and the women
problem,
are coming up. And
here's the problem in our
No,
black
no,
community.
there's not a problem, City of Truth. She
Yes,
just
there is a
acknowledged what you
problem.
went through.
Hey,
She just
Y'all,
wait a minute.
acknowledged that
act like
you have
y'all are the only
your
ones in the
truth and stuff like
community.
that. This is
You
the
want to be
problem because you
matriarchal.
guys
That's
will
the
come up and you
problem.
will get offended. And I
Okay.
understand,
See,
okay?
here's
I
the
get it.
thing.
I didn't have a mother. I had a mother very similar to yours, okay?
Okay.
But I'm up here with a bunch of women trying to get knowledge and insight from other
Okay,
women,
but
and
let
then you
me let
come up
me
here
let
and
me
you just
respond to that.
you're
Let me
okay, wait,
respond.
no,
disrupting.
stop, please stop. City of Truth. You know that my panels are almost always um, open to both men and women. I almost never have an exclusively female panel. And I'm not going to say that men, you can't come up and say your piece. I will say that I think what you're doing when we were having a conversation where women are coming forward and saying, this is hard for me to hear. It's making me uncomfortable. I feel resistant to it, but I recognize there's truth in it. If I'm having a panel and that's what women are coming up to say, if you bring in energy that shuts that down in them, then that isn't productive. So it's not that you're not welcome. City of Truth, you've been up here many
All right,
times. You
I
know
have
that you're welcome. But
two
I
selections.
want to say, regardless of what goes on in male spaces, in this space, if you're honest, you can see that the energy has changed. And even though I understand you were just sharing your story, it's so important to me that we don't close women off from
Okay.
hearing this because it is a hard thing to hear and even to agree with, right? Then I don't want to shut that down by putting them making them feel that they are being attacked or that a man is coming up to say something that we're already saying because the energy is just it's not right. So you know that you're welcome, right? You know
All right,
that
but
you're
just
welcome. You can
say
come
my
up,
last
but
two
but
sentences.
I am going to drop you off. But go ahead and say what
It's
your
it's
last piece before you
it's
go.
that okay. See, y'all do this,
Oh, good
and
grief. Dude, why don't you quit? You
do
look,
this,
you're
and
wrong.
when
Get
y'all
off
go
the
out into the
calendar.
world,
These are
Who
and
women
is
the
coming up here
world
y'all?
talking about
treats
women
you,
issues.
No, wait,
And now you
I
gonna
want to
come out
hear
here.
stop, wait a second, because
where is my
he's
protection?
not gonna be able to leave if he can't say what he has to say. So
Yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead,
But
say
here's
your
the thing.
piece.
Y'all go out into the world, and the world mistreats you, and then you say, "Well, where is my protection? Is no one protecting me?" And then you
Oh,
want to silence all the people that who could protect you. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, okay, thanks. All right, go ahead, O'Shea.
look, Luna, and you said the exact same things I come up here to say. This is a woman's panel talking about things that women are taking accountability for and so forth. And when a man come on here, all it does is just change the energy and it takes away those, it gives an escape route for those women sitting up there saying, yeah, we might need to change that because see, then the focus become on the man. And now all of a sudden, it becomes a big old shouting match and it becomes a big old pointing fingers back and forth. Look, dudes, stay off this panel with it just women. Let them take accountability for the stuff they want to take account for the stuff they need to take accountability for. Because every time you do this, then we go complain about how women are not holding women accountable. they can't hold women accountable if we keep jumping in the middle of this stuff. Leave them alone, and I'm off.
And I
Thanks.
wanted to agree with him. I wanted to
Mhm.
agree with him when it's like, because it's not an echo chamber. I like, if anybody has seen me on a panel, I have said some very controversial things. I've said I've hated black men. I don't want black children, and that, I believe a lot of black men are the same, but I am still open to learning and to healing. I'm getting therapy and stuff like that for the traumas that I went through in my life, but I'm still open to hearing other black women and their experiences. And so therefore, for someone like me who was uncomfortable to even be in a black male presence for so long after having what was done to me, you know what I'm saying? I'm still open to learning and to healing and to being a better person. And it just messes up the dynamic so many times, because then when I get on the panel and these dudes start acting like that, it just makes me think like, damn, no matter what, he's supposed to be an ally, same black man. No matter what, he's supposed to love black women, same black men. No matter what, guess what? Doesn't have a black family, he's not married, none of that stuff. And I know not all of you are like that, but I need to be able to talk to other women and hear their point of views out. And I need to be able to see a cohesive environment with other black men in order to truly feel like not all black men are the same. Because so far as a collective, you have all been the same. It doesn't matter economic status. It doesn't matter light skin, dark skin. It doesn't matter how old or young. For so long, I have seen nothing but the same black men. I have grown up seeing the very worst of black men, unfortunately. And it made me so jealous and envious when I would hear other black women talk about all these good black men that they had in their lives, because I've damn near never been a witness to that. Like, I can think in my head, like, okay, well, my coworker's black, he's great, he's done all this stuff, but I don't know the dynamics and ins and out of his relationship and how he is with his children. So therefore, in my experiences, I've never seen a good black man, which has ultimately made my decision where I had felt like, to even live a halfway decent life, that I never wanted to even procreate black. Therefore, these panels are super appreciated because I can hear different women and their experiences and what they've gone through, and their opinions on things, because it does ultimately affect my decision. It does ultimately make me feel like, okay, well, yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, um, y'all know I hate to have to make the panels single gendered. I don't want to do that, but I have to say that the past few times I've opened up my panels, we've had to put those panels Patreon members only because they would be going so well. And then not all the men, but you would definitely have men that would come up and derail the conversation. It's just like, if we're having a productive conversation and these are things that you agree on, I do think you should either fall back and let the conversation flow, you know, or if you come up, be supportive. But there's no need to throw stones when the stones are being hurled already. Like, we're hurling them amongst ourselves, right? We're all catching hits. We're all dealing with it. We're all trying to work through it. And y'all know I hate when that work is undone. I agree. So many people say we don't do the work, but then we're not given the space to do that work and to be attacked. I mean, even I felt some kind of way, and I'm the one that was trying to have the conversation. I was like, oh, this isn't good. And so I know if I feel that way, and y'all know that I have a heart to have these conversations, then women who are so used to constantly being blamed and berated to the point where it's hard for them to have introspection because they're constantly having to be on the defense to protect themselves, they're really going to have a hard time with the conversation. So it definitely, I do hear the ladies when they say it's difficult when we have these conversations and the men participate and they kind of derail the conversation, because it's not just Luna saying that. Luna does have a channel, by the way. Somebody in the chat was asking a couple times. Luna, you can put your and then if one of the mods could just make sure that her channel link shows up,
No,
you can
no,
put
no.
it in the chat if you
Okay.
want.
No, I have to be very specific because I know, Irene, you're Christian, so I don't know if a lot of Christian people follow you. So, um, the purpose for my channel was to
Oh,
talk
she's a
about some of my
witch,
experiences,
right?
but it was, yeah, I'm a witch. So
Yeah, Luna.
you're
That's
not
why I
into that.
said this is definitely not an echo chamber because Luna not only disagrees with me on many points, but she's not even remotely Christian in the slightest. So,
Yeah, no, I'm a whole witch, and me and Irene, we need to have a conversation on that alone because I don't even believe that demons are evil. But just to put that out there, don't just be subscribing. Just know what you're getting into.
so yeah, I thank you. I appreciate that, Luna. And I think that's why when people come, I know the word echo chamber is thrown a lot around on YouTube, but obviously, y'all, if you guys don't know anything about my channel, it's the one thing we are not over here is an echo chamber at all. Definitely, the conversations are not going to be interesting or beneficial if everybody agrees on every single point. Laura, what are your thoughts?
Well, I want to say I'm glad that mm, that caller, that that gentleman stepped off of the panel because I was privy to the derailment of one of your lives recently, and it was not pretty. So I was thankful that this didn't take that turn. But I really just want to say again that the last time I tried to come up, I ended up having to abandon that mission because I had a call come in that I had to deal with. But I think these conversations are necessary, very, very necessary, because I am not African American. I was born and raised in Trinidad, in the Caribbean. And it's amazing to me that when I come on YouTube and I listen to the experiences of my sisters in the US and in other places, that it's so similar. And it's heartbreaking for me, as I said before, because I am biracial, but I grew up obviously identifying with my blackness because that's what I present as. When you look at me, um, people, some people who are familiar might suspect that there's something else in there because of my hair. But generally, I am the typical, I think I'm phenotypically black. Um, so that was the way I had to navigate the world. And, the stereotype of the angry black woman. And because I'm 5'7" and I'm not petite, people just automatically think that I'm going to be aggressive because I can speak and articulate. Um, you know, I get called masculine. So it's been good for me to be able to listen to some of these discussions that you've had, Irene, and other content creators on here to help me understand. So it's helped me to realize that I'm not isolated in my experiences, and that has been good, but it's also been sad, because it's hurtful to think of my sisters across the diaspora sharing the same pains that I have had to endure. But I really think that this is the time for us to open up and to begin to heal and to have these conversations and be able to not only hold each other accountable, but to give support to one another so that we can, because like you said, we are extreme. And maybe if we really do get it together and begin to operate cohesively as a collective, then maybe we will see the change that we want in the rest of our community. That is my hope and my prayer. Yeah. So, but I really want to say that I truly appreciate your willingness to take us to these places, um, because it's helping me. It's really, really helping me. The conversation about seeing black boys as evil, that broke me wide open. I was in tears, literally, because I recognized that my eldest son, especially, he never saw the nurturing side of me because I was always so overwhelmed. I was always so hyper focused on taking care of things and getting it done that all he saw was, the harshness, and the recognition of that broke me wide open, because today he has three children of his own, and I feel like I have to walk on eggshells just to be a part of their lives, and that is extremely painful. So thank you again for being willing to bring us together to have these conversations. And I know it's triggering for us sometimes, because really and truly, if we had the support, maybe we could be better. But we have to stop focusing on what we don't have and try to, as Irene said, um, instead of focusing on what we don't have in the way of the support of the men that we have these children with, we still have to focus on how integral our role as mothers and women are in the lives of these people that we were entrusted to raise. Yeah. Um, so that's basically what I wanted to see.
Honestly, that was beautiful. I think that's one of the most profound things anybody has ever said on my platform. And I'm so glad that you said it. I want to take that one sound bite and just play it over and over for people, because I think you spoke so eloquently and honestly. And I know that so many of us can see ourselves reflected in what you said. I really appreciate you coming up. And you guys know I said I wasn't going to let this live go over an hour and 30 minutes, and we're at an hour and 20 minutes now. Um, but I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Laura, Luna. Thank you so much. And to everybody that came up today, I know it's an uncomfortable conversation, but I do hope that y'all know that when I have these conversations, I have them out of love. I love you guys. I love women. I'm such an advocate for women. I love you guys. And so I want to have these conversations not to shame you or make you feel bad or put a greater burden on you than is already sitting on you. It's just because I have such a respect, right, for women, and I put so much value in womanhood that I want to have conversations with you that are at the measure of your value as women. And so when you are such an important part of humanity and society, I want us to have conversations with acknowledgement that that is who we are. And that requires, us maybe reflecting on things about our functioning as women and mothers that is not comfortable. But anyway, thank you so much. Luna, did you have anything you wanted to say before we went? Laura, thank you so much. That was really profound. I need to listen to everything you said again and just process it. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for
Luna,
having me.
Yeah, okay, so Laura, oh my God, I love your accent so much. It's the most adorable thing ever. But, I appreciate hearing that too. And, when I come up on panels, it's never actually to argue or anything like that. But because I know for a fact that this is a Black community and there are other Black people who think like me, I'm not the only one. The only difference is I'm comfortable and centered in myself enough to be able to have conversations. And so therefore, I don't have a problem with talking to anyone. You know what I'm saying? But the thing about it is I'm very sensitive and I don't like to argue. So if we can have a conversation, you know what I'm saying? I don't mind people talking to me or messaging me or anything like that. But I wanted to say, also was that Irene, I appreciate your panel so much because you take it to a place that goes so deep in depth that you have no other choice but to look inside and look through your trauma and deal with, everything that that you've never been able to have to be forced to look at before, because we spend so much time at work, at school, at whatever. We don't have time to really look through that trauma and really be able to pull out all those little things that actually matter, that go into making a community a community. And before I get off, I just wanted to respond. It was just like, Razi, you in the chat, I've always wanted to have a conversation with you. I've just never been able to actually talk to you before because I don't ever actually see you in the chat. So my experiences have actually, it's not so much that I've never met a good Black person. It's just that after my past relationship and with everything that I had been through growing up in childhood, it's just that I never know who someone is in their personal life. So it's not that they're not good. They could be great, but I don't know who they are because, my ex who tried to kill me, he was pro-Black and he uplifted Black women and he supported Black businesses. And then we get to a point where he almost killed me. And so therefore now I've reached a point where, okay, so many times I've been disappointed by Black men. So many times that, they try to talk about how different they are or how, you should choose better and all this other stuff. And I still got the same Black men. So I do recognize that my views aren't necessarily normal in a sense. And that's why I ultimately decided to get therapy for it. But I also recognize that there is something wrong in that sense. And that was the whole reason for me even making a channel and seeking out other women who were like me. It was because I knew they weren't normal, but I also knew that they were normal enough that when I came online, most women have had experiences similar to mine without even being, without even knowing me, without me even, me knowing anything like them. And it's so hard to talk to Black men sometimes because you guys want to put yourself out as different, but then we encounter so many men who say they're different and who present themselves as different, but then we end up getting the same Black men, to the point where I can now understand why a woman wants to divest. I can now understand why a woman is bitter. I can now understand why she's angry, or why she may think that, even if she has a Black male child, that he'll be evil or something like that, because we just encounter so much bullshit and we're never afforded the opportunity to be able to express ourselves and to be able to be vulnerable, because we always have to be on the defense. And that's something that I've always dealt with, but that I've recently become comfortable with, was letting myself down and being vulnerable enough to be able to open myself up and have a conversation. And that's why panels like this are super important.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Luna. And I hope that we can have these conversations moving forward. I think I'm going to be more cautious. You guys know I don't like to have to close people off because I want to hear what people are bringing, but I do want to be more cautious because I do think we get a lot of good work done, and I want to make sure that that's never derailed. You guys know Sin is live. She sent me a link, and we're gonna go over there and have a conversation. I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm gonna continue packing, and I'll probably go over to Sins and see what she's talking about. I want to thank you guys for coming up. I want to thank you guys for being in the chat, and let me know your thoughts on this subject in the description box as far as women's accountability, what we're able to contribute, considering the fact that we have our hands on the minds of children. And also I want to hear what you think about men being a part of these conversations. Do you think that it's helpful for us to just be able to center as women? Do you think it's important that we also hear their voices? Um, are there limitations on it? Let me know. Let me know what
Irene,
your thoughts are.
Irene,
Yes.
um, can I suggest that maybe the next time you want to have a conversation like this, um, give the men an opportunity for them to express, um, you know, what they have to say, um, before we try to do a mixed panel.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
like a
I think
separate
that's a good
panel, like
idea. Is like
one for the men and one for
separate
the
it.
women.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think that's definitely fair. I
Mhm.
think it's fair to allow the men to have a voice and then allow the women to have a voice, but not have that overlap. That might be
Mhm.
super productive. So I definitely think I am with
Or
that.
maybe if you want to have a mixed panel, maybe then you will have to select the persons that you want
Yeah.
to be a part of that panel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I think I like the idea of just kind of separating it. I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea. That way everybody feels they get to have a voice, but our voices don't have to overlap, because I do think obviously men and women are going to come from two different
Yes.
places, and that can be problematic or it can be beneficial. But my past few lives, y'all, it has not helped. I've been very upset about the direction that they've went. It has not pleased me. So I think I'm going to definitely take that under advisement. And I think that's how we're going to approach it the next time we deal with something like this. But anyway, y'all have a nice, what is it, Wednesday? Have a nice Wednesday. I'll
Thanks
talk to you
again
guys
for having
later.
me. And I love your content.
Thank you so much. Bye, you guys.
Bye.